Welcome to Wits in the Walks of Life, a part of the Sunavs. I'm Inchara Athreya, and I'm here today with Mr. Stuart Ogawa, who is the founder and CTO of Forsent Health, the company that conceptualized, developed, and released Eva, the world's first Alzheimer's AI caregiver assistant, helping 50 million plus dementia patients, their caregivers, and families. He has also worked at companies such as Yahoo and Sysomos. He has led global engineering and operation teams in the Silicon Valley, Bangalore, Tokyo, Toronto, London, Barcelona, and Kiev. Thank you so much for being here today, Mr. Ogawa.
Glad to be here. I'm honored to be here, Inchara.
Let's start off. Do you think you could tell us a bit about your journey in the world of IT? How did your passion build up?
I guess how the passion started was my dad being an engineer and having grown up in the Silicon Valley. I was influenced a lot by being here. I grew up in the Silicon Valley and specifically in San Jose when it was still predominantly orchards and farmland. Obviously, the semiconductor business grew out of the Silicon Valley. And having said that, I grew a passion for amateur radio or wireless communications. That started when I was around 6, 7 years old, when I picked up my novice class license, which you need to know basic electronics in order to pass, along with some operating Morse code procedures. As I got a little bit older, 10, 11 years old, I received my general class in operating and Morse code knowledge. And it was during that time, just what I call, 11, 12 years old age, where I started doing a lot of experimentation, electronics, antenna building. And back then, most of the stuff we couldn't afford to buy it, so we always had to build. And obviously, the internet wasn't around back then, so you always had to go to clubs to learn about this. So between my dad and then going to the clubs, I learned a lot more about electronics. That led to doing some radio teletype. So I would say that's a precursor to my knowledge of working with computerized typewriters. And then by the time I got to high school, I was the last class to do bunch card programming, and I was the first class to use this new thing that they put on our desk called an Apple II computer. And we started programming on Apple Basic. We stored everything on tape recorders. That was my first introduction to working with computers back then. By the time I'm getting close to graduating from high school, having done so much electronics and kind of programming, I just got burned out. And frankly, I didn't want to go into engineering full time. It felt like I've already been spending my last, 8 to 10 years in that space. And I guess I got burned out. I never got tired of it, but I just didn't see myself wanting to study that for the next 4 years. I actually got a degree in economics. But I took a lot of math and programming classes because I found that still very, very fun and interesting. Economics, business economics. I went to work for a consulting firm called Arthur Young. Back then it was known as the Big Eight. It's now known as Ernst & Young, the Big Four. So that would be really where in fact, I was one of the first to actually go into Ernst & Young because I was part of the Arthur Young side and we merged. And once they realized I could program and I knew a little bit about finance and accounting, that kind of set the career trajectory for me if I continued to question. Had to do with my, just curiosity and interest in electronics and programming at an early age.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I find Eva quite interesting. Could you maybe tell us about your inspiration behind creating Eva?
Eva came out of towards the latter year and a half working at Sysomos. My mother began to have an accelerated version of vascular dementia. I became her caregiver. She lives in San Jose, so only about 15 minutes away from my current home. And I ended up stopping work for quite a while to take care of my mother, and it became overwhelming. I would receive many times phone calls from 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. on the phone saying, "Stuart, did you pay the property taxes? Stuart, how old is Camden?" That's my youngest son. "Stuart, how old is Joshua? Is he still in gymnastics?" And that would occur, let's say 1:15 a.m. in the morning. And then about 10 minutes later, I would get that same phone call again. And then in a half an hour from that, I'd get a different set of phone calls. The gardener's supposed to prune my rose garden. And this would go on till about 4:35 a.m. By the time I got up, I was not getting any sleep and answering the same questions, but having this go on for at least the first 12 months of the 18 months that I was helping my mom out. It was during that 12th to 13th month period of time that I was sitting at the dinner table with my wife, Jane, who's also a physician, and I was just exhausted with my hands holding my head up as I was eating. And it dawned on me that I just thought, hey, I could probably build something or Google Assistant, except it would be very personalized for my mom. So that instead of when she's asking about these questions, if I had an always on device, like a Siri-like device or an Alexa-like device that's always on, it could answer these questions without me having to answer these questions at 1 a.m. or 3:30 in the morning. And the repetitive nature of the questions was really burning me out as well. So it was really out of need. It was literally killing me because I was just always tired and answering the same questions over and over and over. And it was just, I didn't see any end. So that was kind of the inspiration. Once I figured that out or thought about that over dinner, I did some research. And then after we did doing the research in the architecture design, it was about 7 weeks of programming that we got the very first version of Eva actually functionally alpha running. So that's a little bit about Eva. The Eva name actually came from one of our family pets. We have guinea pigs and rabbits, and Eva was a very, very social and engaging guinea pig. It was really that simple. I just saw Eva and I said, yep, that's the name of that's what we're going to name this. A caregiver. It's always engaging and happy. So that's how the Eva name came about, and that's how the genesis of how we developed Eva, really to help myself answering my questions for my mom.
Wow, that's so cute the way you named the app after the guinea pig. And it's so nice that you managed to take something from your own experience and then build an app that can help so many other people. So, speaking of helping other people, do you think you could tell us a bit about the features of this app and how it works?
Sure. I alluded a little bit before. It needed to be an always-on application in many cases because you just don't know when you're going to get these questions or statements that come out. I would divide the types of questions or statements that I encountered and that we subsequently received really into 3 different groups. One was the repetitive questions. So, did you pay the property taxes? How old is Camden? How old is Joshua? So there's a lot of who, what, where, when, why types of questions that would always come up. And they typically, from our subsequent research, determined that for a certain state of perhaps 6 to 8 weeks, they will probably fixate on a top 10 list of questions. And so if you can have Eva or a device actually listen nonstop, did you pay the property taxes? How's my rose garden? How old is Joshua? Listen to it, perform speech to text and analytics on it, some natural language processing on it, some sentiment analytics on it, and then identify the right person in the family, which was really key, family familiar voice. If it's the tax question, did you pay the property taxes? My photo would instantly show up on that device, a picture of me that my mom would see, and then my voice would instantly come on demand. Hi, Mom, I paid the property taxes last month. No worries. Or how old is Camden? Camden's voice would come up with a picture of Camden, which she would recognize both the photo and the picture. Hi, Grandma. I'm 11 years old. I'm still on the gymnastics team. I'm going to be in 8th grade. So the features of the familiar family voice, very, very, that was a central piece to this. In fact, when my wife also did some postdoctorate work at UC San Diego in psychiatry, immediately said when you're talking over dinner, it's imperative that you have a familiar voice. The Alexa voice, the Siri voice, the Google Assistant voice, that can scare people, especially seniors. Who is that talking to me? I don't trust them. Who is that? Versus a lot more engaging and reduce create a calm environment as opposed to agitation or anger. So that was a really important feature that we had to figure out how to do that. I think combining that voice, the right voice to answer the right question with the right photo of the person, that was, although it seems very obvious, it wasn't so obvious when you're dealing with clientele using it. So that was something that we did as well. Yeah, the on-demand piece, always on, being able to answer so that you reduce burnout. That's really was an important piece to me. So those are some of the features. We added the ability for caregivers to say, if Mom liked, for example, Frank Sinatra or Dean Martin, then a caregiver could say Dean Martin, and then we would launch Spotify. We'll start playing a compilation of Dean Martin music or Frank Sinatra music. She used to do a lot of gardening. So if the caregiver would say gardening, it would start showing gardens of being taken care of that looked like English gardens, for example, which were her favorites. So we could actually highly tailor the content, whether it's YouTube content, family pictures or videos, music, sports, whatever you want, calm them down, keep them relaxed and engaged. So those are some of the features that we'd put into Eva.
That's really nice. I find that apps in general lack the person element. They are merely systems, but you've done your best to put people into it, and I find that really interesting. But I'm guessing you must have faced some challenges along the way. Do you think you could maybe tell us a bit about those challenges?
Sure, of course. You know, when we first developed the very first versions of Eva, which is a conversational AI, it didn't dialogue flow wasn't completely out by Google. So we actually had to build we had to kind of mock up our own dialogue flow engine. Midstream, when we started getting into the first or second beta versions of Eva, dialogue flow came in, and that made a wonderful difference. We immediately incorporated dialogue flow, but I think that one of the challenges was being able to do conversational dialogues with low latency so that it felt like a real conversation. So as you and I are having this conversation right now, being able to have that similar speed, tone, and responsiveness in a normal conversation was really, really critical. And so having a low latency, no matter where the person is in the world, if mom lived in Southern California and I live here up in Northern California, example, and she's talking, there shouldn't be any internet delays or very, very minimal internet delays of whoever responding and mom having that conversation. So that was a pretty big challenge. Another challenge we faced was when we did a lot of our trials in many of the major facilities in North America that host memory care seniors as well as retirement homes. Surprisingly, I'm going to say probably over 80 to 90% did not have very good internet access. Even ended up having to rewrite a lot of the application, assuming that there may not be internet access. That took a lot of the stuff that we had in the cloud. We're using the Google Cloud. We had to move a good portion of that functionality right into the smartphone or tablet device. So that was another big challenge we had. And I think our current challenge we face is issue of generating awareness that the product exists. It's for free right now. We have a version of it on the Google Play Store that people can download on Android in English. We're starting to roll that out to a variety of different countries. And I think India, at least for the English speaking part, we may in fact have that already available. If it's not up there available right now under Eva Moments in India via Google Play Store, it will be we're trying to basically create as much awareness about Eva so that people can use it for their families and give us feedback. It's still in beta. We do extensively long beta tests, but we've gotten very, very good feedback so far on the usage of it.
Yeah. I remember checking it out sometime last year when I was at my dad's office for about a week over summer. I remember someone quickly walked me through what's happening at the moment, and that's what sparked my interest to learn even more. And a year later, sitting here, I'm so happy I got to do this.
That version that you probably use, you'll probably see a big difference in that. We've gone again. We're just taking a lot of customer feedback. That's why we're involved in very long, extensive betas. We've received a lot of feedback since you probably saw that version. And so the free version that's available on the Google Play Store for Android, I think you'll find, it will definitely be different, probably even quicker in content and functionality that used to be in the cloud right into the device. So how it looks and feels and operates is probably going to be night and day if you decided to try it out to A/B test what you saw from before last summer to what you're seeing now.
Yeah, I'll be sure to take a look soon. So you were speaking about feedback. Could you tell us a bit about what your users have thought so far? I mean, I'm sure most people would have loved it.
I've been told from global researchers around the world, we conducted supposedly the largest ever reminiscence therapy, conversational therapy study ever done in the world. It was about 560,000 minutes of before and after usage of Eva with about 106 clients, 50 plus professional caregivers, the 106 families that were involved, and 5 major facilities that are well known in North America. Each of these facilities probably has close to 250 residential homes that they take care of retirement, assisted living, and dementia patients. And every one of the homes probably has somewhere about 150 to 200. So if you multiply that 200 times, the 200, 4,000 times five. It's a pretty conducted with some of the largest facilities in the world. You might be able to, I guess the big three takeaways, I think Inchara, I sent it to you. We did a summarized bar graph of some of the results, but it was the results that we got back from a questionnaire that Dr. Chen had put together for us. So that we did a survey, before and after survey, before using Eva and after using Eva, filled out by the caregivers themselves about their clients. Probably the top three that always stick out in my mind from a caregiver point of view. One was, if this app was available, would you use it? And they said, they went from hating their job to, I wouldn't do this job without this app. I mean, it was like from a scale of from 10, like I don't like my job, to I love my job if I'm using this app. Another one was, we saw one client that was spending close to 45 to 50 minutes with two caregivers trying to convince the woman to take a shower daily, dementia. So we recorded a video of her father. So the daughter had dementia and the father was taking care of the daughter. We had so many of those types of heartbreaking cases that we were working with. We recorded her father on your bubble bath. You love your bubble bath. When he would say that in person, she would jump right into the shower without any issue at all. But when her father wasn't there, she would struggle. I mean, just put up resistance, and it'd be 45 to 50 minutes. So when we used Eva, which also had all of our favorite music and events, the caregiver would just say, Eva, it's your father. And then they would say, Adele, shower. And then immediately Eva would launch that app to take your bubble bath. You love your bubble bath. When she saw that on the phone after the caregiver did it, she jumped right in, just as if her father was there. We saw huge numbers of those cases occur. It took caregivers 20, 30 minutes to convince a person to take meds. It went down to a minute or less when they used our application in conjunction with family. So the highly personalized nature of using family, which I talked about, a little bit earlier about some of the features, familiar voices that they're familiar with, was really, really the key. And then being able to have it come out really fast, snap fast, its conversational speed in the moment. That was also key. We saw a lot of those types of great results from Eva and the test.
Wow, that sounds so interesting. I'm mind blown. I'm so happy to know that there's an app out there that can help people experiencing these symptoms. I mean, I've seen someone quite dear to me go through this, and I've seen how painful it can be. So just knowing that Eva exists is giving me so much comfort. So additionally, do you see a broader scope for this app? Do you think it could be made better with some more features? Do you have anything in mind right now?
We will be putting out an iOS version. Depending on which country you're in, there's a propensity for certain people to use certain devices or operating systems, iOS versus Android. It turns out in the North America, US and Canada, we probably see 90% of the people have asked for an iOS version. And they're predominantly, most of the caregivers in North America that we've seen, that we worked with, were all 100, I think 99% were female. So 99% were female, either family caregiver or professional caregiver. So we know that that's one feature that we need to release out, will be an iOS-based version. And that will probably come out towards the end of this year. In fact, I've been working on that. We're going to add some more feature functionality that's not in this current version that we received based on some more beta feedback. So more feature functionality, and then an iOS version on top of that. Another second thing will come down the road will probably be more language sets world in different languages through requests. Some people have asked it in Hindi, Mandarin, Taiwanese, Japanese, Vietnamese, French, Italian, German, Spanish, Russian. There were several other Eastern European country languages I'm missing, I'm sure, but there was close to 20 different languages from around the world where we got important down the road as well. I think third, the other feature we're looking at is being able to create. What we found was a lot of families don't have pictures of their children or readily available pictures or videos of familiar places, like when mom or dad, if they have dementia, where they grew up, brothers and sisters. The children just don't have those readily available. And so one of the features we're looking at that we've tested already and see feedback, very, very positive feedback, is being able to do something what we call the lookalike content. If you tell me what village, town, or city you were born in and what year you were born in, we could probably figure out the content that your mom or dad's going to like. So that if they've got dementia and you don't have any pictures, or they're all alone and there's nothing that you can do for them, by just giving a little bit of information that you want generally in this town or this city area, we could probably find content and then have it automatically out of the box start presenting content, even if you don't have your own pictures or videos. So that's a really important feature that we'll be adding in coming out.
That all sounds really interesting. I can definitely see a broader potential for more languages with so many people out there not knowing English. And also, the last thing you said about it being able to figure out what your parents' interests would be, that all seems really cool to me. So, lastly, to wrap this up, I'm a student and I'm very passionate about the fields of psychology and neuroscience. And I'm sure there are a lot more out there, especially in the present day. There's a lot more shift towards the areas of mental health, psychology, and neuroscience. But also nowadays, we see that technology is a part of every field. You can't say that technology isn't a part of any single field. So, with you being in that field, in the healthcare and the technology field, do you think you have any advice for students who would want to get into the same field?
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing, and I can't speak, but I'm sure it's happening in India. But it's funny you mentioned this. My older son is also a senior right now, just starting as a senior. We went to a lot of colleges the past 3 weeks in California, both Northern California and Southern California. And he's actually going to go into psychology. And so I started looking at the programs that they have. And as you mentioned, there is an abundance, at least in California, that I'm seeing occur. And I'm sure this is happening around the world. It's not rocket science knowledge, but you're seeing a huge growth in programs that involve both technology, like computer science, neurology, and psychology as one program. Even a lot of graduate programs, and I'm starting to see this actually as an undergrad, and in some of the undergraduate programs, I was quite surprised to see how much, if you wanted to take computer science and psychology as a combination major, that's clearly there. There are some of the undergraduate stuff is also involving neurology as well. I think those are all spot on. Where you go with that, if you decide to just do pure research, or if you're then going to develop applications that are based on that, they obviously will have its different pivots of where you emphasize, but it's clearly a growth area. I think my also comment for rising seniors here that are, as a senior now and those coming up would be curiosity. I mean, that's the only reason why. I mean, I look back again. I was one of the first classes on the Apple II computer with a tape recorder. That was me, programming on those and punch cards. Look at me now. I knew nothing about neurology, psychology. That wasn't my undergraduate. I just kept learning. I took my own classes, and I got lucky along the way to keep involved with big data. And then all of a sudden, the math and science that I used to get insights from that massive data, and then adding, the areas I didn't know about neurology, so neurology 101, and some psychology classes. And that's how Eva popped out. I was just curious. And well, I had a really big problem. I needed to solve a problem to help my mom. But I think when you can find that curiosity and you can find that problem, it will take you down paths of trying to find solutions. In my case, you couldn't Google the answer. There was no answer to Google. I needed a Siri or an Alexa or Google. Finding those type of problems and letting your curiosity and persistence is really, really important, especially as a particular case. I'm pretty old now by most standards, and yet I'm still doing this. Just got developed in the last 4 years of my career. It's never too late. You just have to be very, very persistent and curious, and wanting to solve a problem. So that's my advice.
Yeah, that's some great advice. Thank you.
For seniors.
Yeah, so also you were saying about technology coming into psychology and neuroscience. Yeah, I'm quite sure that's happening all around the world, and I'm really excited to look into that aspect as well. So thank you so much for doing this interview. As I mentioned before, I find Eva really, really interesting, and I'd love to check it out sometime and maybe just explore its features in more depth. Thanks again for being here. Thanks for your time and all those wonderful answers, pieces of
Thank
advice
you,
you gave.
Inchara, for inviting me to talk about it. Thank you, Inchara, for inviting me. Appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Wits in the Walks of Life, a part of the Synapse. Today's guest was Mr. Stuart Ogawa, who is the founder and CTO of Forsent Health, the company that developed Eva, the world's first Alzheimer's AI caregiver assistant. Be sure to check out the app Eva Moments on Google Play and hop onto forsenthealth.ai for more details. Stay tuned to hear stories from accomplished individuals in a variety of fields. Thank you for listening.